In this video, we're going to learn about friend functions. So what are friend functions? A friend function is a function that is not a member of a class but has access to the class's private and protected members. So we're saying, all right, friend functions are functions that can access a class contents of which it's not a member. So we have our one function over here. It's just a normal function, int function, that is outside our main function. So in total right now we have two functions, that is in main function and in function. So inside my class I'm gonna have public and two access specifiers, public and private. So inside our private specifier, access specifier, I'm gonna have a variable in Cobra, and the other thing I want to do is I want to build a constructor. So I'm going to build a dragon constructor, and I'm going to add a colon, and I'm going to type Cobra with parameters, and value of Cobra would be 0. And remember, we have now initialized. Remember, we basically studied the member initializer video. From there we learned how to initialize variables. So this is why we have put Cobra and with parameters 0 in it, with actually an argument 0 in it, and our Cobra variable is in between the colon and the round bracket and the curly bracket. And if we want to add another variable, we can type comma and that variable. But for now we are focusing on our motive of the video, that is to study friend functions. So that's why for the simplicity I'm going to use just one variable. So now that this function is outside this class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable this function to access the contents inside of this class, inside the dragon class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prototype this function and copy this, paste it over here, and I'm going to type a word friend. So now that we have our function prototype, and the tricky part is that in the parameters it's going to have dragon. It's basically going to access the stuff inside the dragon class. That's why we have this dragon parameters inside this friend function prototype. So I'm going to add a comment over here, friend function proto type prototype. There we go. And this right here is the actual function body, or in other words function definition in technical terms. So now I'm gonna do is I'm gonna access the Cobra variable. My goal is to access the Cobra variable inside this function. So what I'm gonna do is in the parameters of my function body I'm gonna type dragon and D is gonna be an object. So remember, in order to access stuff inside the class, we actually use objects. So that's why we created this object, in order to access the function inside the dragon class. And now I'm going to use this object so to access that Cobra variable. So I'm going to type d.cobra, and then I'm going to initialize the value to 77. And the next line I'm going to type return d.cobra. So whatever the value, well in this case 77, is going to return it to the function right here. So that's why we have typed return d.cobra, and this is the object name followed by the variable we want to access. So I'm going to add a comment right here, accessing ACC. Whoa, messed that up. Private data from a non-member function, because this function right here is a non-member function, because remember, anything that is inside a class is called a member. So this is, of course, this is outside the class, so this is a non-member function. This function does not belong to the dragon class, but since it's the friend of dragon class, this function is a friend of dragon class, so that's why it can access the stuff inside the dragon class. And now I'm gonna go to my int main. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try dragon, because that's the class where we wanna access the objects, access the stuff. So what I'm doing right here, I'm creating an object. I'm creating another object because since we are inside another function, and when we want to access the stuff inside our class, our Dragon class, so that's why we make objects to access the stuff from class. So I'm gonna name this object as D2, and then I'm gonna write cout, and then I'm gonna type Dragon is now, oh my god, and then I'm going to type insertion operators, and I'm going to type function name, and the parameters, it's going to hold this object right over here, D2. So there we go, one little extra space right there. So what we did was, in the first step we created an object, a Cobra variable, and then we built our constructor, and then we initialized Cobra variable by using member initializer syntax concept from our previous videos. And then we prototype this function, and then we build this function right over here. And then what we did was we access private data from a non-member function. Actually, we access this Cobra variable and set the value of Cobra equals 77. So the initial value was 0, we changed the value to 77. And by changing values, we have not done a great job, but it's just I wanted to show that we can change the values of Dragon class. Although this function does not belong to the Dragon class, but since this friend keyword it's added over here, your compiler is gonna think, alright, this function is a friend. This function right here in line 17, 18, and 19, this function right here is a friend of this Dragon class. This class Dragon right here. Let me zoom out a bit so it's gonna be easier. So now in our main, what we did was we created an object from Dragon class, and then we printed out Dragon is now, and this function, this friend function, and the objects is gonna be D2. So remember, when we typed here return d.cobra, it basically took that 77 and returned to this func right here. So that's why when we later printed out in our main, it's gonna have 77 print out on the screen. So let me go and build and run this program. So there we go, it just printed out Dragon is now 77. So that is the point of this video, basically the friend function. So definitely right now we're building a simple program, a very simple program. So you're not gonna able to see the actual use of friend function, but in lengthy programming it's actually useful. It's basically another C++ feature that programmers love. It's like another signature function, or you can simply call it as an extra feature of C++ language. So that's it for this tutorial. And remember, as you're watching this video, so by now you have watched the video, but if you want to practice the friend function, what I'll recommend you, as you watch this video, type along with me. That will definitely help you out. Actually see one part of the video, pause the video, and then type whatever I have typed over here, and then again play the video, or whatever you like. You first play the video on the first time, and when you watch the next time, you type along with me. So in that way it would be much easier for you to understand. So at least I'm gonna try that this video gave you for like 10% of understanding of friend function. But if you didn't understand in one take, go ahead and rewatch this tutorial again, and you'll definitely by 2-3 times you're gonna understand what exactly a friend function is. So you guys studied this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one.